Welcome to another one of my videos. This one was definitely requested. Someone was asking, why do I show mm, what do I critique on the thing of autonomy versus traditionalism, and how do I experience it with my own parents, especially my mother? So the first thing here that I'm going to cover is there's definitely that gap that I've covered before, and the really big problem with this is that it doesn't lead to solutions. You see, my mom's side, she thinks very pessimistically. She thinks that we gotta do all that before tomorrow, kind of like the fatalistic mindsets, because whatever's inevitable is inevitable. And the really problem is she doesn't have that growth mindset, not that type of mindset that you can learn from your mistakes. Like any slight mistake that's made, I think my mom would definitely criticize me for that. What's really sad about this is that when in the heat of the argument, she can definitely say a lot of terrible things. All right, I've also seen this with my own friends too. Uh, it's just she doesn't really. I know she doesn't really mean it, but it does kind of hurt sometimes, especially when I read the last note when my own friends' parents have said to them when they were angry. It just really sucks. Like, you have no compassion. You stay in your room on all the time. You stay up all night. You look at your phone all the time. That's just really sad, bro. Especially these mindsets. My mindset is one of growth. Like, I know I can learn from my own mistakes, while my parents' mindset is very pessimistic, and that can clash very much. All right, my mom's just kind of pro-inflammatory. Like, let's say she has a really strong political view on this side or that side. Let's say I try to show some nuance. It gets really heated at times. Obviously, I'm not the one that's instigating. I don't get heated myself since I still stay pretty neutral, but she does get pretty heated at times. To be fair, and looking at my own friends' parents too, most likely yes. And that's a really big problem with nuance, is that people can't accept neutrality in very strong viewpoints, especially when I've covered in cases of abuse. I definitely accept that many people may not accept my viewpoints, but then again, it's about understanding and giving a fair judgment to two sides instead of going to straw man or ad hominem attacks, because they don't lead to solutions. Nuance and looking at both sides to make a proper judgment is what is right, alright? Especially covering the cases of abuse for other people, looking at both sides is very important, alright? We can't just stay to this or stay to that one side. No, we have to look at both sides. No matter how much hate each side is getting, no matter how much emotionally charged someone is getting, does not matter. We need to look at it with an impartial mind. We have to look at it with fairness. All right. Now looking at it again, because my mom and I, especially my own friends' parents too, have these differing mindsets. It definitely challenges the notion of how I'll treat my parents is all how I'll treat others in a relationship. The problem is I reject that blanket statement. It does not work universally all across relationships, because then again we also have to recognize some mother parent relationships are toxic. Let's say a young teenage girl or a young teenage boy is constantly getting abused by their mother and they're attacking them back in some sort of anger. Does that necessarily translate that at that how they'll treat other people in relationships? Not exactly. If they know how to differentiate between good and bad, then obviously they won't be treating their mother, they won't be treating their partner the same way. All right, so that's why I'm challenging that notion right there. It does not apply all of is because the notion of how you treat your parents is how you'll treat your so treat your future partner. That is not true across all domains. Blanket statements are intrinsically blanket statements on a lot of things are intrinsically flawed, all right, because they unfairly give that this fact or that fact is true in an ever changing world. Obviously, let me make this very clear for the extremists out there. It is not an excuse to treat your parents terribly, alright? I know my mom can get heated at times, but I still need to maintain my neutrality. I need to maintain parts of my core personality. It is not an excuse, alright? Not an excuse to treat people terribly. But looking at that blanket statement again, it does not work all across all relationships. There is a really big difference between parental love and love for someone else based off of partnership. Alright, there is a really big difference, and that's how I'm definitely learning to challenge that notion. Because it requires this form. Just like I talked about the really sensitive topic of doing it before marriage, we have to add critical thinking. Alright, we have to think critically and say, uh, is this going to work all across all this or that or not? And that's what's really interesting here. All right, so definitely I know my parents can also clash sometimes, especially the mindsets, especially with my own friends' parents too. To be fair, what they say can be really painful sometimes. I'll be honest with y'all. It's really deep to take in a lot of the things that they say. But then again, they're probably a lot of there are a lot of there a lot of stress. They're under a lot of stress too, and ultimately I gotta treat it with empathy. But then again, it is not an excuse to justify bad parenting. Bad parenting is bad parenting, and it needs to be looked at directly, head on. Like no sugarcoating. Gotta look at that stuff directly. You can't just you can't just show this or that. You can't just show empathy as a way to hide responsibility. No, empathy needs to be balanced with responsibility and accountability in this case. Now, looking at it again, am I painting my parents in a terrible light? It really depends, all right, because there's both good and bad. I can't just call anyone just good or bad based off of what they do or what they don't. My mom is definitely an example of a person that can't be categorized as good or bad, because even though it's really complex for the matter, even my own friends' parents too, I can't categorize them as good or bad because they have good intentions, but it's how it's delivered. It gets really terrible sometimes. All right, especially with the differing mindsets, as I said. That's what I'm just saying right here. Of course, in an actual case of when there's actual abuse that's going on in parenting, obviously report that stuff. All right, empathy is not an excuse to hide away responsibility. Empathy is learning to understand another side, but then again, doing what's right.